Hello and welcome to week 12 of NFL Gamepicks. I'm Austin Ramos. For you guys watching, you can clearly see it's just me in this one, but for you guys who are listening, just me this week, so get used to this voice. For those of you guys watching, get used to this face. No Chris and Joey this week. They're unavailable to come, unfortunately, so it is what it is. We ride solo dolo, but we will mention their picks, so don't you guys worry. You will see a lot of their picks. Most of them, I will say, are very similar, but there are very distinct ones that I will point out specifically that they, flip flopped on. But yeah, man, this is week 11 was a crazy one. I'll start and speak for both of those guys because their teams faced off this week between the Chicago Bears and the Green Bay Packers. And man, before I even say anything, gotta put on this handy dandy little cheesehead to give you guys this recap. So, the Chicago Bears held a lead late into the game, and then the Packers were able to mount a game-leading drive in the final moments of the game. And the Bears retaliated. They answered back, and they were driving down the field, got in field goal range, kicked a field goal, and it got blocked. A game-winning field goal getting blocked has to be the absolute worst feeling, especially against a division rival, especially against a team that you haven't beat in 6 years. Well, about to be 6 years if they lose the next one. In 6 seasons that they haven't won against. It's a tough one. But with that being said, I picked the Packers. I'm happy the Packers won. It sucks for the Bears, though, because this further and further pushes them back out of a playoff picture. So, I'm hoping for the Bears to have some success, but man, it's a tough way to lose. With that being said, go Pack, go. All right, and you know what you guys want to hear from me. It's about the Miami Dolphins. They got a pretty nice win against the Las Vegas Raiders. The separation didn't really come towards the later half of the game. It was a relatively close matchup, and then with the final third of the fourth quarter, the Dolphins were able to separate with a big Johnny touchdown, and then to cap it off with the Jalen Ramsey interception on the following drive. So, big win by the Dolphins. It wasn't a massive opponent. The Raiders are definitely a team that is, vying for the number one overall pick. So, Dolphins should have won that one. They did. I'm glad that they did it with some ease towards the tail end there. But it wasn't necessarily, a nail-biter of a game. It was Dolphins pretty much the whole way through. It's just there was some moments that the Raiders did threaten. But with that being said, let's check out the standings. So right here we're on NFLGamepicker.com. And, of course, the main man, Steve, he is leading the entire leaderboard here with 119 wins, 47 losses. Went 12-12 last week. That's the best record, including Anthony down there. But he's way on down in the leaderboard. Let's keep on going through the standings. We got Hecty in second place with 113 wins, 13 losses. 6 games behind first place in big old Steve-O. And then in third place, we have a two-way tie between Edwin and Jillian at 110 and 56 on the year. Fourth place right behind them, 108 to 58, Chris der far right. Moving on down the list, I'm in 8th place. It's not looking good for me. But I did have a decent week going 9-5. I'm at 99 wins, 67 losses. And then in last place, we got Joey with an 87-79 record, given we do have that scuffed week by Joey not inputting the games. But yeah, let's just talk about what we got going on. Week 12. And without further ado, we're going to get into these matchups. So, for those of you guys watching, you're going to see that Chris and Joey's picks are already loaded in, locked in, and ready to go. So, in this matchup, we have the Pittsburgh Steelers at the Cleveland Browns. Chris and Joey are both going with the Pittsburgh Steelers. I can't blame them. Pittsburgh is obviously the better team. Cleveland doesn't have Deshaun Watson, shipped off Amari Cooper. And then Pittsburgh just had a sensational defense Their passing game with Russell Wilson has elevated to a different level, and it's helping out the running game. So you can argue that the Steelers are probably one of the top teams in football, especially after defeating a big time divisional rival in the Baltimore Ravens. So with that being said, I'm gonna go with the Steelers here. I do think they're the better team. Let's see though, Cleveland at home on Thursday Night Football. Maybe worth a watch, but if I have anything really important to say about it, I would have. But they're not really gonna be that much of a close game. I think Jameis throws a couple picks. I think Russ, finds a nice groove to keep on going after not having the best game against the Baltimore Ravens. But a win's a win. You gotta keep it moving. Speaking of keeping it moving, we have the first game on the Sunday slate. We have the Dallas Cowboys at the Washington Commanders. Washington is favored by a big margin here, and that's why Chris and Joey are both going with the Washington Commanders. I can't blame them. I'm also going to go with the Washington Commanders. The Cowboys had a decent approach to the game on Monday against the Texans, but then the sky started falling. Not to be funny or anything, but the roof was literally like there was parts of metal sheets from the roof falling at AT&T Stadium. Luckily, no one got hurt, but it's a wild time here in Dallas. I don't think things are going well. I think the Commanders get a big bounce-back win, especially after losing their previous matchup to the divisional rivals in the Philadelphia Eagles. So getting a bounce-back win against another divisional rival in the Dallas Cowboys will be very necessary for this Washington Commanders team. Now, let's keep it moving. We have the Detroit Lions at the Indianapolis Colts. Moving pretty fast here, but this is probably one of those games that you may want to highlight and see what the Colts can do, especially with Anthony Richardson coming off a decent performance against the New York Jets. And the Detroit Lions looking like arguably the best team in football. And that's no mistake on why Chris and Joey both are going with the Detroit Lions. I will be going with the Detroit Lions as well, but I would say if you're watching any of these games from home, keep your eye on this one, because this has upset written all over it. Because the Colts team, with Anthony Richardson at the helm, could probably go toe-to-toe with the best of them. And, it's no shade at the Detroit Lions. I feel like there's definitely moments in the season that a lot of these top teams drop games that they shouldn't. For my own individual hopes and gains, I hope the Colts do lose this one, just so the Dolphins can kind of leapfrog them in the standings. Let's see what can happen there. But, yeah, I think Detroit keeps it moving and rolling. And we're going to keep moving to the Kansas City Chiefs at the Carolina Panthers. Chiefs. Happened. You guys finally lost your first game of this season. It was a pretty good run. 8 straight wins to start off the season. 9 straight wins, my apologies. 9 straight wins to start off the season. And you lose to a familiar foe in the Buffalo Bills, a team that they've been playing pretty much each and every season because both teams have been winning their respective divisions for the last couple of years. So they're constantly getting matched up against one another. But they did that good old team right there, the 1972 Miami Dolphins, a big favor by getting a dub. This past Sunday afternoon, it was a 4 o'clock game, and it happens. And the writing has been on the wall for Kansas City this whole time. There's been a lot of close games that, a lot of people argue they probably shouldn't have won, and it finally happened to them. So, I was not too worried about them, having an undefeated run, because it's a really hard thing to do in today's day of the NFL. You have a 17-game season, and even if you win those 17 games straight, then you have to win 3 more games, making it 20 straight wins for your team. It's really hard to do in today's day and age of football, where even if you have the best possible team out there, you're still going to struggle and probably drop one of those games. So with that being said, I think they do get a bounce-back win here against the Carolina Panthers, though. So I will be going with the Panthers. Chris and Joey are both going with the Panthers. My apologies. We're all going with the Chiefs. Look, the Panthers coming off a bye. They got a big win in Germany against the New York Giants, but the New York Giants aren't that great. The Chiefs are definitely going to find a way to get right against this Carolina Panthers team. One note is the Panthers are wearing all black, like their black helmets and stuff, so at least it'll look cool while they lose, I guess you can say. But let's go to an NFC North divisional matchup between the Minnesota Vikings and the Chicago Bears. And this is the first time that Chris and Joey have disagreed on their picks. Chris is going with the Bears for obvious reasons, and Joey is going with the Vikings for obvious reasons. But as a fan, if I was Joey, I would prefer if the Bears won this matchup to kind of scuffle things up a little bit for this Minnesota Vikings team because, Minnesota has dropped 2 games this season, but they're still a good team. They're still, technically in the Packers' way. But, hey, Joey thinks the Vikings are going to win this one. I'm not here to argue against it. Now, I'm kind of torn because the Vikings have been a pretty sure thing all season. Out of the 10 games, they've obviously have won 8, but, they've been losing a few here and there. Just to be specific, they lost 2 straight to the Lions and the Rams. The Rams one was a tough one. And then they faced 3 AFC South teams between the Indianapolis Colts, Jacksonville Jaguars, and Tennessee Titans. So, not the toughest opponents, and, the wins not necessarily coming with a big margin of victory. So, I think the Vikings have slowed down a bit, but the Bears haven't been anything too crazy. They've had their ups and downs for sure already throughout the first 10 games for their season, but it's hard to say here. I'm really torn, and I'm just going to go with the more sure thing, and that is the home teams in this matchup. So give me the Minnesota Vikings. As much as I kind of want to go with Chris on the Bears here, I just don't think they get the win here, and that's unfortunate for them. But we're going to keep moving to my favorite team, the Miami Dolphins, and they're hosting the New England Patriots. Drake May is actually looking pretty nice for this Patriots squad, and they're competing. They are, fighting as hard as they can to, compete in a lot of these games. Fortunately, in one of his earlier starts, they went into overtime and, could not end up getting a win against the Tennessee Titans. But then they went and defeated the Chicago Bears the following week. They went and lost by 1 possession to the Los Angeles Rams last week. So, this team is being competitive. They have some fight to them. It's just a matter of other teams having superior talent. And that's unfortunate, but that is the position that this Patriots team is in. Now, the Patriots coming into this matchup 3-8, Dolphins 4-6. Something's got to give between these 2 teams, and, I want to give the Dolphins the upper hand, and I will. I will pick the Miami Dolphins here, but I wouldn't be surprised if the Patriots really, really try to muck this all up. The boys are going with the Miami Dolphins here. Chris, Joey, they're both going with the Fins. But I'm not saying it's going to be easy, but I believe the Dolphins, are going to be able to cover the spread at 7 points. You guys hear how and see how confident I am in that? I don't know. All right, we're going to keep moving, though. We have the Tampa Bay Buccaneers at the New York Giants. The Giants have benched Daniel Jones. It's official. They are looking to move on from him and, not require his services not too much longer. And it sucks for them because they paid him some big bucks. And in doing so, they've locked him down for multiple years and put himself in quite a predicament. They are 2-8. They're arguably one of the worst teams in the NFL right now. And they're vying for the first overall pick. And not saying that, the quarterbacks of this class are not going to be as coveted as the quarterbacks of last class. But I don't necessarily think this is the year to be, all in on finding your quarterback. Now, what do the Giants do? Do they move off of Daniel Jones? Do they stay with him and, try to just patch things up next year and maybe trade away the first overall pick and see what happens? Who knows? Could they try to pull what Chicago did and trade away the first overall pick and then get a couple of first round picks, and then by the grace of God, that pick is ending up being the first overall pick the following draft? Who knows? But hey, go with the more sure thing, and that is the Tampa Bay Buccaneers here. Bucks have had a rough season, and the Godwin injury, the Mike Evans injuries have not been very helpful for them. But they've been able to compete each and every week, and that's something I just love to see out of teams like the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, who are just gritty. They're just gonna go tooth and nail with you and see what they can do. But yeah, all of us are gonna go with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers here, and I'm gonna keep us moving. And we have an AFC South divisional matchup, and that is between the Tennessee Titans and the Houston Texans. Apologize here because on the graphic I have the wrong time. It's a 1 p.m. matchup. Oh, don't want to do that. There we go. All right, it's a 1 p.m. matchup still, so don't be confused by that graphic. But yeah, the guys are going with Tennessee. I don't know why they're going with Tennessee. I gotta double check and make sure I did not put that wrong. But let me double check here. My apologies, guys. Got this one all screwed up. They are going with the Houston Texans. Big error on my part. My apologies. But yeah, Houston Texans looking like a pretty good team. They are struggling with the inconsistency of the health of their wide receivers. Not having Stephon Diggs has been pretty drastic. Obviously, not having Nico Collins, who until he got hurt was leading the league in almost he was arguably going to be the best receiver of this season, and vie for possibly the Triple Crown for the year. So, I hope Nico can get back to those type of plays, those type of numbers, and be a massive contributor for this Texans team. So let's see what happens. But I'm gonna go with the Houston Texans here. The Titans are not so great, and they, just like the New York Giants, are vying for the number 1 overall pick. And let's see what happens in that sense. Are they going to be, moving off of Will Levis? What will they be doing if they get within the top 5 picks? That's something to watch. I think if you are within the top 2 picks, more than likely got to take a quarterback, but it's a tough spot. And then we got one more, and this is the first 4 o'clock game. We got one more team that is vying for the number 1 overall pick, and that is the Las Vegas Raiders. I think they can make some big-time moves in the offseason, not only with a draft pick, depending on where they draft, and they're looking like they're probably going to be in contention there at 2 and 8 for the number 1 pick overall as well. But they can do something big time. They can sign a free agent quarterback and then bring in the good old Travis Hunter. And I think they can really light some things up if they do that. But, we're a little too far out from there. We're only in week 12, so we got at least 5 more weeks of football before we can really, really, really start diving into some of that draft stuff. But, yeah, man, the Broncos have been surprising pretty much all season long. And at this point, it should come as no surprise. The Denver Broncos are pretty legit. They have a game plan and a system that is working for them. Sean Payton has got Bo Nix and is molding him into the type of player that he wants to execute his system to a good standard. And that is, overall the team is going to be running the ball efficiently. But then, they're also going to be passing the ball efficiently. And then the dynamic that is, different in compared to previous Sean Payton systems is that now Bo Nix is being mobile. Yes, he had Russell Wilson last year. It's a different story here because you have a very young guy in Bo Nix in comparison to Russell Wilson. And I understand Bo Nix, 5th-year senior type of guy, stayed in college a lot longer than he probably should have. But I think he is the driving force for this team offensively. You can argue that Javonte Williams starting to run the ball a lot better and just be more efficient with his runs. That could be a driving force for that as well, for sure. But Bo Nix is the heartbeat behind that Denver Broncos team, and that's why I'm going with him, and that's why probably the other guys are going with him as well. But we have a very, very, very interesting NFC West divisional matchup here between the Arizona Cardinals and the Seattle Seahawks. Seattle, in the thick of it. Just when you think they're not going to win, they're going to win. And just when you think they're going to win, they're not going to win. It's a weird situation for that Seattle Seahawks team. But this Cardinals team, I wouldn't say they are a massive surprise, but they are a team that has been just lurking in the shadows, just missing a few pieces. And on top of that, they haven't had this good of a level of play by Kyler Murray in a while. So, and that's why I'm going to go with the Arizona Cardinals. Chris and Joey also going with Arizona Cardinals. Sorry to be lame and, all of us be picking the same things. But that's going to change very momentarily because in this next matchup, the San Francisco 49ers versus the Green Bay Packers, this is the only other game that Chris and Joey so far have, disagreed on. It was the Bears-Vikings game and the San Francisco 49ers versus the Green Bay Packers. I think it's very funny. I think they're both being very spiteful in terms of, picking against each other's teams. Because Chris is going with the 49ers and Joey is obviously going with the Green Bay Packers. This one's a tough one. I do believe the Packers currently are the better team. Overall, though, do I think the 49ers are the better team? I could argue so, but the 49ers have been so inconsistent this season. And I understand injuries have a deal to play with it. So I'm going to throw in a stipulation, and that is if George Kittle ends up playing in this matchup, I will go with the 49ers. But for the time being, I'm going to go with the Green Bay Packers. It's crazy to just say, if Kittle plays, I'm going with the Niners. But he's that heartbeat of that team. Regardless of who's hurt or who's not, it's Kittle. He's a little engine that could. Obviously, the addition of Christian McCaffrey coming back has been beneficial to the San Francisco 49ers, but it's not, the end-all be-all right now because they've played so long without him. They've played 9 games leading up to his return without him. So, and they found success in other running backs when he was out. So, not to discredit anything that Christian McCaffrey can do or will do for this 49ers team. It's just the fact of, Shanahan is a pretty well-regarded offensive mastermind. So, I think when you add George Kittle back into that mix, I think he's going to be a pretty big difference maker. But let's see if he plays. If not, I'm going with the Green Bay Packers. And we're going to move on to Sunday Night Football. We have the Philadelphia Eagles versus the Los Angeles Rams. And yet another disagreement between Chris and Joey. Chris is going with the Eagles. Joey is going with the Rams. This one's a tough one. I'm not entirely sure who I really want to go with here. Because while it is, the Rams are 5-5 and the Eagles are 8-2, the Rams have fight in them. And, just from seeing them in person in that Miami Dolphins Los Angeles Rams game on Monday Night Football 2 weeks back, they have a lot of fight in them. They make a lot of crucial errors, and that's what is resulting in a couple of their losses here. Now, can they limit those mistakes against Saquon Barkley and the Philadelphia Eagles? Notice I didn't say Jalen Hurts or A.J. Brown. No, it's Saquon Barkley and the Philadelphia Eagles because Saquon is the little engine that could for sure for this Philadelphia Eagles team. It's tough. I would love to see Philadelphia lose just in the sense to shake things up a bit. And then on top of that, the Rams winning would also shake things up a bit. But I'm going to go with the Philadelphia Eagles here. I just think the Rams are going to slightly struggle with this Eagles running game. Now, watching the Rams in person 2 weeks back, Dolphins could not run the ball very well against them. Obviously, the caliber of running back is different when you have comparably a Devon Achane to a Saquon Barkley. Two completely different players in terms of how their play style is. Achane is going to be, once he gets his hole, he's going to take off. And I'm not saying Saquon can't do that, but Saquon will shake you out of your boots and stuff like that. So it's a different caliber of running back. Obviously, the offensive line has been built to, ground and pound and run. But another thing to be on the watch for is Jalen Hurts. He didn't look so good after that Thursday Night Football game. He got evaluated for a concussion. They said no concussion. And then he went and missed A.J. Brown, who was wide open by 5 yards. He just threw it so far left. It could be miscommunication. Could be up here, literally and figuratively. Or, it could just have been just a simple mistake. Who knows? But, yeah, it's a weird one. Now, we're going to take it to the last one, Monday Night Football, SoFi double dip. We got two back-to-back primetime games at SoFi Stadium. This time, it is the Baltimore Ravens versus the Los Angeles Chargers. Chargers will be wearing their all navy, dark navy uniforms for any of you guys who are interested in Uniswag. And I haven't even gotten to the best part yet. It's the Super Bowl. It's the Super Bowl. We got the Harbaugh brothers back in action against each other for the first time in a long time. Jim has been off and away at Michigan coaching college football over there, while John has still retained his position with the Baltimore Ravens. That is arguably the biggest storyline in this matchup, aside from the fact that both of these teams are in the thick of it, of this wild card race. Both teams are 7-3 or 7-4, and this could dramatically shift either team's seasons or just their standings, so on and so forth. It's like, for example, Baltimore, they're second in the division and they're 7-4 because guess who? The Pittsburgh Steelers lead the division at 8-2. So, Baltimore, if they really, really want a chance to win the division, they can't afford to lose any more games. But then the Los Angeles Chargers, they're still kind of in the mix there because Kansas City finally lost. And if they can get a game up on Kansas City in terms of when they play each other and they can defeat Kansas City later down in the season, then we got quite a bit of a shakeup here, right? And you have also Denver on your tail. So the playoff standings are a little janky, but these are two of the top wildcard teams as it stands right now. And I wouldn't expect much else of this matchup because right now 5 and 6 seeds, and it's gonna be interesting. I think both teams are gonna be grounding and pounding because that's been pretty much both of their MOs this whole season long. Chris and Joey are both going with the Baltimore Ravens. I'm really excited for this matchup. I want it to be very entertaining, and I gotta root for that kid from South Florida, and that is none other than Lamar Jackson and the Baltimore Ravens squad. I just think they, at the end of the day, will have a more physical attack than this Los Angeles Chargers team. Not saying anything about the Chargers here. It's just more so the fact that when you have a guy like Derrick Henry, you just need to give him the rock. And that's what they struggled with in the last matchup. So I'm fully expecting John Harbaugh and that Baltimore Ravens team to bounce back, run the ball, and just dominate time of possession here. Because as much as I slander Justin Herbert, you don't want to give him the ball that much. You don't want to let him have, dominating the time of possession and so on and so forth. But that wraps up this week's game picks. I will mention that there are some teams on bye. This is one of the 2 weeks that there will be, how many teams? 6 teams on bye. We got the Atlanta Falcons, Buffalo Bills, Cincinnati Bengals, New Orleans Saints, New York Jets, and Jacksonville Jaguars. Atlanta, shocking loss to the Denver Broncos. They've been kind of erratic this season. Highest highs to lowest lows in terms of wins and losses. And then you have the Buffalo Bills, big time win against the Kansas City Chiefs. I believe they can't claim the top seed yet just because of the overall records, but that does help them in terms if they want to try to claim that number 1 seed if it should come available if Kansas City drops a game or 2 or more. Cincinnati Bengals, big time loss against the Chargers last Sunday night. A big comeback, but it didn't really help them out. They got to find ways to, 1, not get off to slow starts, 2, close out those games once you already start getting that comeback. New Orleans Saints, not really good football team. It's unfortunate because they were really entertaining to start off the season. The New York Jets, another bad loss. And this one, it came to the hands of the Indianapolis Colts and Anthony Richardson. I would say New York Jets season is over. They fired Joe Douglas this week. They already fired their head coach. So looking for a whole new regime. Let's see what Aaron Rodgers' future in New York is. And then we have the Jacksonville Jaguars. Man, what a bad year for the Jacksonville Jaguars. They had expectations for competing in that AFC South division. And here they are being arguably one of the worst teams of football and pretty much now losing for the number 1 overall pick. Let's see what they do with that pick if they should get it. You know, that's just something that runs across my mind when it comes to that. Aside from that, that pretty much wraps up this week's game picks. I'm excited for the Dolphins hosting the New England Patriots. I just hope they come out on top quick and early. That'll be all for me. Hope you guys enjoyed it. I'll catch you next week. Peace.